So let's move ahead to question number 12. What are the different ways of implementing WCF security? Now what we'll do in this question is that we'll first try to understand the concept or basics of WCF security. Then we'll look into two important things of WCF security. One is the transport security and the other one is the message level security. And finally, we will see that in what scenarios we will use transport security and in what scenarios we will be using message level security. Now, before we move ahead and we talk about WCF security, let's try to understand how is WCF service consumed, and then we'll try to understand that at what levels we can apply WCF security. So here's our end user, simple end user, smiling, and here's our WCF service. Right. Now this WCF service, the end user connects by using some protocol. So there's a protocol which is necessary to connect to the WCF service. Now this protocol can be a HTTP protocol, it can be a TCP protocol or anything else. Now over this protocol goes our data. So over this protocol basically are our data packets which goes inside the SOAP XML. So the next thing is the data. Now WCF gives us two options. You can either apply security at the protocol level, and that is called as transport security, or you can either apply security at the data level, and that is called as the message security. So in other words, transport security is nothing but your infrastructure security. For example, let's say that you are using HTTP to communicate to your WCF service, and your network administrator has implemented SSL on HTTP. So in other words, your HTTP is now HTTPS. Now what WCF security framework will do, it will basically leverage this HTTPS or the SSL provided at the transport level, on the service level. So in other words, WCF security has the power to leverage the currently provided transport security like SSL or X509 certificates or VPN to its own benefits. So in other words, whenever you implement WCF security at transport level, you are trying to leverage your internal infrastructure security. Now message security is built inside the data itself. For example, let's say the data what you're passing is encrypted. So in other words, the security is built inside the data itself. Or for instance, let's say that you have encrypted data using X509 certificates. So that means your security is built inside the data itself. So transport security means infrastructure security, while message security means the security is built inside the data itself. Now what we'll try to understand is that what is good and what is bad. Is transport level good? Is message level good? Is a combination of both of them are good? So in the coming session, or in the coming times, in the coming sections of the video, we'll try to understand that in what scenarios is transport good, in what scenarios is message good, or probably in what scenarios is a combination of both of them better. Transport security is good if it's like an intranet application. So for example, now this is an intranet I have here, and here's your WCF service on a server. Okay, now this WCF service can be connected by multiple persons, and because it's completely inside your control, it's inside your intranet, you can apply SSL, you can apply VPN, and there are no issues over here. So in other words, if you are in control of client's environment, or in other words, if there are no intermediate systems in between, then transport level security is better. But let's say now that this WCF service has to be exposed to the external world. Somebody from some other location who is not the part of the intranet wants to consume it, then message level security is better. Now if it is a combination of both of them, so for example, let's say that your WCF service is going to be consumed inside the intranet, and also there's a possibility that your WCF service is going to be consumed by external people, then transport plus message is the best option. So for example, like you can have SSL, which is a transport security, plus with some username and password. So transport security is good when there are no intermediate systems in between and you are in control of your environment, in the complete environment, including the client who is consuming your WCF service like intranet. But if you are not in control of your environment like the internet, then you have to use message level security. And if it is a mix of both of them, that means if it is basically your intranet as well as your internet, then you can use transport plus message. Transport plus message is always the best option because you get a double layer kind of security. So like for example, you can use SSL as a transport security with the message security using username and password of Windows authentication or your own custom authentication. So transport per message is always the best option because you get a two-layer kind of security. Okay, we have already gone through what kind of scenarios we can use a transport security and what kind of scenarios we can use a message security. So basically, if there are no intermediate system in between, it's your own intranet, then transport security is the best. If there are intermediate system like WCF service is routed through some other router or some other network, then definitely message security is the right way to go. Now let's talk about the advantages and disadvantages of transport and message security. The first important thing about transport security is that it is built in inside the protocol itself. So you do not need to do any kind of extra coding or extra effort on your source code to implement transport security because it's a infrastructure level security. The disadvantage of transport security is it's protocol dependent. So in other words, when you pass from one boundary to other boundary. So for example, if you're moving from intranet to internet, then the transport security falls apart. The second advantage of transport security is better performance because there are a lot of hardware accelerators like routers, etc. in between, which can enhance the performance. The third is there is a lot of interoperability while communication because it's a built-in security of the protocol, so it is highly interoperable. So advantages, doesn't require any extra effort. Performance is nice because there are a lot of hardware accelerators like routers, Cisco routers, etc. A lot of interoperability. Disadvantage, because it is protocol dependent, so when it moves from one boundary to other boundary or it moves from one type of network to other network, then and if the protocols are not same and if the security frameworks or the infrastructure security is not same, then the transport security will fall apart. Message security basically provides end-to-end security because the security is built in inside the message itself. So any intermediate hop between the network from an intranet to an internet, it doesn't affect. Second is it supports wide range of options. And second, and the best thing is that you can implement your custom security. For example, you can have your own algorithm of decryption or encryption, which you can apply on the message level. The disadvantage is that you need to do some extra coding for it because it is, you need to actually write some code in order to implement this security. And and the other disadvantage is it doesn't support interoperability with old ASMX services. So if you're using old web services, then message level security doesn't support those kind of options. So summing up, advantages of transport security, you don't need to do extra coding. Advantage of message security, it provides end-to-end security even if there are intermediate network hops. Performance is better in transport security as compared to message. There is a lot of interoperability operability as compared to message security. Disadvantages, message security can go from any network to any network, while transport security depending on how the networks are compatible, it will support stuff, or else it will fall apart. So I hope that this session was useful. In the coming up session, what we'll do is that we'll try to demonstrate how should we implement transport security, how should we implement message security, and how can we implement a combination of both of them. So in the coming up session, we'll be doing more practical work like implementing transport security using SSL, implementing message security using user ID password, implementing transport plus message using user ID password plus SSL. So I hope that this session was useful, and see you in the coming up sessions.